As you watch the screen, your heart begins to beat faster. There's a fluttering in the pit of your stomach. Your throat is dry. Your palms damp. Suddenly a chill runs down your spine. You clutch the person next to you. You tell yourself, it's only a movie. It's only a movie. But sooner or later, it's time to go home.
Welcome to Film Strip. I'm Jay.
I am Ron.
And this is our review of Friday the 13th, the 2009 remake, starring Jared Padalecki, Danielle Panabaker, Aaron Yu, Amanda Righetti, Travis Van Winkle, and Derek Mears. Directed by Marcus Nispel, released in 2009 on a budget of $19 million, grossed $91.4 million at the box office. I remember distinctly when this one was coming out, Ron, went and saw it in a theater with the wife, wrote a scathing rip of it. At the time, I was not a fan of it. But, you know, I've owned it in a couple of different formats now. So it's not one I've come back to very often. Platinum Dunes and horror remakes have a weird history with each other. This is Michael Bay's Horror House, basically. And it got started with those Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake and then The Beginning, which I'm not going to lie, I have a fond curiosity of both of those films. I'm not a big Texas Chainsaw fan, so it's easier for me to sort of let those go. But the Amityville Horror remake and the Hitcher remake and some of those others, and not so much. Their record's spotty at best.
Well, if you put Arlie Ermy in a movie, I'm probably going to be happy with it. So, I mean, that's a bonus point for Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Beginning.
He was in the first one. He was in the first one.
He was in the first one too.
He was in the first one too. In the second one, they just let him do whatever he wanted. That's why that performance is so much better than the first one. I'm one of the few people that likes the second one more than the first one.
And I mean, to be fair to Platinum Dunes, they did give us The Purge.
Yeah.
And the Purge series, which I enjoy quite a bit.
I haven't seen Election Year yet as of this recording and release, but I plan to get on that pretty soon because I like the Purge films as well. The wife and I are fans. They've done better, but when they first started out, if you said Platinum Dunes was remaking your horror franchise, people would get a little worried.
Yeah, and with good reason, I think, because the Texas Chainsaw Massacre reboot has some good things to say about it. Specifically, what's that girl's name?
Jessica Biel?
Yeah, specifically Jessica Biel in a wife beater crawling around through the dirt. But, and it's always nice to see Eric Balfour in movies. So, as long as Platinum Dunes keeps giving Eric Balfour work, I'm happy with him. I wasn't keen on the Amityville remake. I barely remember the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake. I don't think I saw The Hitcher, but I think that's the one with Rutger Hauer,
right? That's the remake without Rutger Hauer. That one has Sean Bean and, what's the girl's name from One Tree Hill, the super hot one?
Sophia Bush.
Yeah, Sophia Bush.
Is Sean Bean the hitchhiker?
Sean Bean is the hitchhiker, and then Sophia Bush is the preyed upon person. As a matter of fact, I think Jared Padalecki's his Nash. I think that's the one, but I'd have to go back and look it up again. But I've seen the Hitcher remake. I'm a big fan of the first Hitcher. Who's not, that grew up in the 80s? I mean, everybody loved that very weird film, very weird performance. But
and also TV series.
Yeah, it was a very weird miniseries. It's one of those things that I felt like, and I'm not the only that feels like this, that it was a movie, if it had been made like in the 70s, probably would be more revered than it is, because it's got some of that mid to late 80s sheen on it that it, doesn't entirely work. So actually, that's not Jared Padalecki in the 2007 Hitcher remake. So I'll just correct myself now. That's not him. So that's some other useless person. So
correct yourself now before the internet does.
Yeah, I don't. It doesn't even matter though, because we're talking about Friday the 13th, and we've come to really the end of the road here. I mean, all that's left is Freddy versus Jason, and the neat thing here is that this is written by the same dudes that concocted Freddy versus Jason, and that was the one thing that gave me hope about this. Not to spoil that coming review, but going into it, I thought, well, you know, I remember that one. That wasn't awful, and so I'll give this a shot. Sure, you know, the trailers looked cool, and I had no idea what I was really going in for. I had stayed pretty spoiler free on it, and then of course as I watched it, like I said, I wrote a pretty scathing review of it, and I think it was called like 13 Things Wrong with the New Friday the 13th, and I like had 17 and had to pare it down. You know, because I just trashed it for whatever reason. But like I said, it was one of those things that I'm like, well, I probably should go back and give that a look. And fans that have listened to our Halloween retrospective know I did pretty much the same thing to Halloween 2. And if you listen to me and Brian review that, I tell you it's not a good Halloween movie, but it may be the most interesting Rob Zombie movie that failed, you know, ever. And so it's a morbid curiosity. So I've grown to like it. I was curious to go back and revisit this one. Did you remember when it came out? Did you go see it in theaters?
I did not go see it in theaters, but I do have a fun factoid. This takes place in the Transformers universe.
Huh?
Friday the 13th Platinum Dunes edition takes place in the Transformers universe. The bully, the King Douchebag guy who looks like grown-up Billy Zabka.
Oh, Trent. Yeah, or he was one of the mean
Trent.
kids. He was one of the kids off of Home Improvement, is what he looked like. So
Trent is the same character that is Trent DeMarco in Transformers, who picks on Shia LaBeouf. Yes.
Really?
So 2 years after surviving a Decepticon attack, he goes and gets hacked up by Jason Voorhees.
Wow. Yeah, he does get it good. That's for sure. We're going to talk about Trent because I got words.
Thank goodness.
Yeah. Boy, you nailed it though, man. Billy Zabka is who he is, right? Like that is everything that his performance is informed by William Zabka, the great 80s teen comedy douchebag, as he was supposed to be, who, what I understand, has a great sense of humor about all of that, and like was in a music video for a band called Sweep the Leg, Johnny or something like that, and like he ran around trying to beat the crap out of Ralph Macchio.
Yeah, the song was Sweep the Leg, and I love that music video.
Yeah, it's
hilarious.
Yeah,
he also, I think, he directed it.
Yeah,
it's really good.
It's like him and the guy that played Biff Tannen in Back to the Future. You know, they're just the slimiest bad guys in those 80s franchises, but they have a good laugh at themselves about it and don't take it too seriously and sort of enjoy their monikers as what they are. So, but my favorite Billy Zabka bad guy actually is Chaz from Back to School. I don't know if you remember that one or not, but
oh yeah, I just watched it the other day.
It holds up, doesn't it? Just a little digression here. That movie actually still works. So
super young, super coked up Robert Downey Jr.
I mean, out of his mind. You can tell.
like fresh off the set of Less Than Zero, and just absolutely stoned out of his head. Yeah, it's amazing. It's great.
Keith Gordon's in it. Of course, Rodney Dangerfield's the star, but I mean, you've got Sally,
the late Sam Kinison, speaking of coke.
Oh, yes, the late Sam Kinison is the history professor. You got Sally, what's her name from MASH? I can't remember her name now. Kellerman, there we go. Sally Kellerman, a great comic actress. The guy that plays the British professor. That movie's good. Go watch that. Large popcorn for Back to School. Let's go watch that. So well...
Now that we completely derailed the friggin' podcast.
Well, look, if you ask me in 2009, you might as well have had Back to School references in this because they sure as hell pulled in everything else. I counted references from at least 8 of the previous 10 or so Jason films that existed that got shoved into this. And
also Blue Velvet.
Yeah, and like 2 of them are in the first 2 minutes, which is amazing.
Yeah, like the first reference that I remember was the Blue Velvet reference.
Yeah,
so we open up with them sitting around the fire or whatever.
I'm going to tell you now, in my opinion, that all of that can be attributed to our screenwriters here, though. I really think Swift and Shannon are guys that they're kind of in. Damien Shannon and Mark Swift are guys that I feel like are in the vein of Kevin Williamson style and Quentin Tarantino style of screenwriting, where they watch every one of these movies and they're going to put something that is a nod to every one of them in their movie, and that's what you're going to get, because at this point, that's what they thought horror remake could be. If you're going to remake Jason, which at its core, let's never forget, this was Sean Cunningham's great idea when Last House on the Left failed miserably. I mean, it made money, but only because people wanted to see what the hubbub was about. But it was by no means triumphed, not until years later when it had some cult following that, on tape, none of us could understand. It was after he saw Halloween that he came up with, well, we'll just do that in the woods. And, I mean, this whole movie is a ripoff to begin with. So if you're going to remake something that is a ripoff, what do? Well, you rip yourself off. And, I mean, he's behind this, and I think he hired guys that were going to do referential writing for a new Jason movie. And the fact that, again, not to play by hand too early here, the Jason character really could have been anybody. It's just a lot of, I mean, you can see people when you meet them, you're like, oh, he's going to die, she's going to die, oh, he's really going to die. You just pick them out of the lineup. There's one surprise kill in this whole movie. We'll talk about it when we get there, but this whole thing is concocted to just go off of a big kill nostalgia trip.
And that's one of my the more interesting factoids I've uncovered about this movie is that the writers originally had it so Jason killed 13 people.
Right.
Like, they were going to tie it back in to the point where it's Friday the 13th. It was released on Friday the 13th, yep. And 13 people die. But Frank Mancuso, of course, said that's not enough dead people, and he added in people to die. So if it feels like some of these characters just show up to die, it's because Frank Mancuso decided we needed like 5 more dead people.
Yeah, they definitely had to up the body count. And, for this version, I remember the theatrical version. I've owned the theatrical version. I own what's called the killer cut, which is sort of the extended gore scene cut. It's not really any longer, I don't think. Which one did you watch for this review?
I watched the original cut. I thought about getting watching the extended gore cut, which is usually my choice. Then I thought, I'm sure Jay's probably going to watch that one, so I'll watch the other one.
Yeah, I vary on whether or not I prefer that cut in these movies and stuff. Sometimes I think it's better. There's one kill, though, that is very different that we'll talk about when we get there. But that was the one thing my wife noticed, having not seen this again since we saw it in theaters. She's like, I don't remember it being this, like, violent and gory. I said, well, because this is not what we saw. I said, we saw the cut up version. So, but it's yeah, we'll get to that. But yeah, well, they were going to put Tommy Jarvis in this at one point. There was a talk of that. Then they were going to have cameos from previous actors, and thank goodness somebody decided, no, that's a bad idea. And
yeah, what's her name? Adrienne
King. Yeah, it was Alice was going to come back and be
and Scout Taylor Compton. Speaking of the Halloween remake, was attempted to get cast in the Danielle Panabaker part.
Yeah, and they ended up going with Danielle Panabaker. I don't know how she would have worked for that. Scout Taylor Compton's got a real interesting style, and I've seen her do some stuff where I'm like, that's not a good performance. Then I've seen her do other stuff. I'm like, that's actually a really good performance. So she would have been an interesting choice at this point to do it, but. No, there were a lot of things floating around about what this could be. I tried again to ignore most of the spoilers going into it back in 2009. But, I mean, figuring I'm going to get what I'm going to get. It's a Jason movie. People are going to go in the woods. He's going to kill them, and they'll find some way to kill him, but he won't really be dead at the end. And I went in expecting that, and in some ways I shouldn't have been, upset because I got exactly that, when I went and saw it. I think it's all in how it's delivered. And we can get into that more as we get into the movie. But, Ron, why don't you tell folks exactly what happens here in the Friday the 13th remake?
Here's the plot summary, courtesy of the IMDb plus random things I remember about the movie. A group of young adults set up tents near the abandoned summer camp where a series of gruesome murders are said to have taken place back in 1980. which we see the murders in our cold opening.
Yeah.
The perpetrator was a grieving mother driven insane by the drowning of her son, Jason. Does that sound familiar? Who she believed was neglected by the camp counselors, who were probably off fornicating and smoking the reefer. As legend has it, the last survivor of the attacks beheaded the woman, but then Jason came back, and now he is a vengeful and inexorable killer, wielding bows and arrows, swords, axes, and other sharp implements, including his famous machete. The legend proves horribly true, as these campers quickly discover. 6 months after the initial attacks, the brother of one of these campers is out distributing posters of his missing sister, rather than heeding the advice of the locals. The police believe she took off with her boyfriend, but he knows better. The brother crosses paths with an uptight young rich guy who's having his girlfriend and buddies over to his parents' cabin. The brother ends up at the cabin himself just before the sister's attacker sets upon them all, killing them off one by one, including my favorite character, Chewie. But as it turns out, I ran out of steam. Much like the movie itself.
Well, let's see here. How do you describe what happens at the end of this? Go
into an underground.
You got one by one. They picked them off. So Clay and Whitney, which have you even said their names yet at this point? The brother Clay and Whitney, the would-be girlfriend, find Jason's underground lair and rescue the sister. And they think they killed Jason, but maybe not. And do something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna make it up because I don't know where my plot summary went. It was a good one too, dang it.
I'm sure it was. All right. While escaping from the masked killer, Clay and Whitney Clay and Jenna. That's her name, right? Jenna?
No, she's Whitney. Jenna is one of the
sister.
Yeah, Jenna is the no. Jenna's not the sister. Whitney's the sister. Jenna is the would-be girlfriend. Jenna is Daniel Panabaker.
All right.
So Clay and Jenna, yeah.
Okay, while escaping from the madman, Clay and Jenna stumble across a series of subterranean tunnels, whereupon they find Clay's missing sister, Whitney. As they try to flee from the madman and start a cave fire in the process, Jenna finds herself impaled, but Clay and Whitney seem to escape. Or do they? Since this is a Friday the 13th movie, as our two survivors sit on the dock overlooking beautiful Crystal Lake, Jason thrusts himself up through the wood and grabs Whitney again.
Like a shark.
Like hockey mask Jaws.
and credits roll. That's a very coherent and somewhat deeper plot summary than this movie really deserves, Ron. It's pretty much... We see a black and white remake of the last 2 minutes of Friday the 13th one with the fan theory in place that Jason was just watching Mommy kill everybody from the woods. Mommy, who I would say is dressed like a woman from The Others, or that she is from the Victorian era. So he then runs around and we flash forward to cold open number 2, which is our first group of dead meat. So let's just start with that opening, okay? The rain-soaked Jason sees his mother killed in the rain, black and white. At least I can say this about this movie, that they didn't try to reinvent the MO of Jason Voorhees. Because there's been this tendency with horror remakes that we've got to overtell the backstory. Well, this one, for whatever reason, decided, no, we're not going to do that because... it doesn't matter, and the backstory's easy. He sees his mother get killed, who was killing because she thought he was killed. There we go. The dead woman is... the guy kills because the dead woman's dead, who thought, she made some people dead. He likes people dead now. That's how they went with it. And I have to say, I'll applaud this movie for not over-explaining Jason.
Yeah, they definitely don't over-explain. It's the most perfunctory... okay, this is why he killed all those people that I think we've gotten since the second one when they bring up the fact that Jason is still alive.
You know what? I love that word, perfunctory. I was taught that word in 1997 by a dear friend from Texas, and I've used it ever since. And I actually remember thinking that about this movie, watching it in 2009, like it was in my head, like a little chime, like perfunctory, ka 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 ka. You know, and it feels like this movie is built on that idea. And you remember what we talked about in part 5, that one of the biggest flaws that movie has, and it certainly has quite a few, was that it would introduce people and then kill them immediately, so there was no buy-in at all to their characters. And I got to tell you, we saw this opening, and then we get to our campers here who get whacked pretty quick. I thought, this is going to be the whole movie, isn't it? It's just going to be, how weird can we get this huge guy to kill these people? And I got worried early because, yeah, they want to blow through parts 1, 2, and 3 of Friday the 13th as fast as they can. They want to get to, like, the part 4 level drama and killing.
It seems like the opening credits seems like something they had to go back and add just to add to the body count.
Yeah, you know, it does feel tacked on, right? Like that was going to be explained by someone, and then they decided, no, we should show it. And that's the thing I don't get is I'm like, at least Betsy Palmer looked like a lady that could have been a cook at a camp. I mean, she had jeans on and boots. This woman in this long flowing black dress, you know, out in the friggin' rain, that makes no sense at all.
I don't think we needed to see any of that whole opening scene. As fun as it was to see Ben Feldman from Mad Men there, and as much fun as it was to see America Olivo take her top off yet again in a bad horror movie, none of it feels necessary. I think we could have just started with Clay Miller like looking for his missing sister. We know it's Crystal Lake. We know what happens at Crystal Lake, and the locals know what happens at Crystal Lake.
Can I tell you, I think, and I can't prove this, all right, so this is total theory, but I am almost willing to bet that was the movie. And then when they got into production, they realized, guys, this is going to be about 20 minutes shorter than it needs to be. We got to do something. And so they said, well, we'll come up with the greatest cold open and kill scene we can come up with.
And it takes a really long time before we even get to our title card.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's, 7-8 minutes into the film? And
no, it's like, you don't get the title card till 25 minutes into the movie.
I did not time it like that. Holy cow, 25 minutes.
Because you get the initial cold opening, and then you get cold opening 2, The Quickening.
The Reckoning is the second part.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
We could also call it Cold Opening 2 Electric Boogaloo.
It could be, yeah. We do get 2 cold opens before we get title card. But I got to tell you, though, now, for all the problems I have with the cold opening, and I'm going to go through them here in a minute, I will not lie to you and tell you that having watched that again here, that it didn't get me invested in the movie quick. Because I'm like, well, you know what? If you're going to introduce people and kill them like that, I mean, vicious, violent kills, I'm down. Because I knew somebody survived. I couldn't remember who, and there was a relationship somewhere in there. But I remember first time seeing this, I'm like, everybody just got killed. That never happens. Somebody always makes it. And I for a while thought, Whitney was dead. So, but even though she has all of the signs of Final Girl, she's there for she feels bad about being there because she feels selfish because her mom's dying of cancer and she's been taking care of her, but her boyfriend's trying to hook up with her in the woods, and there's all that kind of stuff. So she's not the usual virgin in terror because she is going to hook up with her boyfriend in the woods. So, and that didn't seem like it was a, first occurrence kind of thing with her. So I was invested in it, at least from the sense that Jason took him out really hard and fast. And I thought, man, it's a different Jason. But I mean, Crystal Lake present day here, I get that they're going camping, but we got 2 people, Richie and Wade, who are out there looking for the devil's lettuce. Let's just say it. And my question has always been, and it was a complaint back then, is like, did Jason plant that as teenager bait? Or did it just naturally occur and nobody fly over that part of the county?
Well, I assumed that if you kill so many weed-smoking teenagers, there's going to be some seeds that get scattered around. And that this is just leftovers from That's 30 years of unchecked marijuana growth.
Was that people the mother killed or that Jason killed along the way? Because you get the sense that he's been killing people for a long time, and people, the locals, like you said, just know better to not go there and just leave him alone. Which is very Texas Chainsaw, by the way. That feels so much. That old woman at the house is so Texas Chainsaw.
Yeah. That was another thing that was the thing that the writers brought to this script, that they wanted Jason to be more. They wanted to give him more of a reason to kill people, so they made him, I guess, territorial over Crystal Lake.
Yeah, Derek Mears has said he based a lot of the performance off of the way, like, John Rambo just loses his mind in the first Blood movie, and where he just starts protecting himself against anybody that crosses a certain line and stuff. And I've got that sense that I'm like, he's a super hunter, and stuff too. In addition to being a massive human being. I mean, this maybe, I don't know how much bigger he is than Kane Hodder. I know he's taller, but he looks to be just a, linebacker of a human being.
Yeah, he's definitely a huge dude. Although, interestingly, they were worried that he was too nice to be Jason.
Yeah, that's the word. Is that, well, and people said the same thing about Tyler Mane. When he got to play Michael Myers in that first one, that remake that Zombie did. No, he's pretty good at it. He's just this menacing force. But that's the thing.
Derek Mears is 6'5".
Okay, so yeah, he is bigger than Hodder. To be that, and I'd say at least 260 pounds of just bulk too. It's all upper body too. I mean, he's just massive, and so you feel like he could throw one of these girls through I would have loved to see what he could do with a sink full of liquid nitrogen, So
I would have just liked to see another sleeping bag kill.
Well, we get one of those though, right? Like, we get some real crazy stuff here. Like, we're all sitting around the campfire, and of course we got Wade, who has to tell us the backstory on Jason, because that's for everyone who has heard of Friday the 13th but hasn't seen any of them. So he's that guy. And while he goes to take a leak on some weed, his friend and girlfriend get it on in the tent, and of course Jason's watching them, and Jason, is going to kill both of them, but he kills her in like this most sadistic manner. He ties her up in the sleeping bag and holds her up over the fire, so she basically just bakes like an oven, like a baked potato, right?
Yes, and let's not also forget, this is the first time we've ever seen Jason set traps.
Yeah,
specifically a big honking bear trap that clamps down on Richie's leg.
Yes.
And looks like gorily awesome. I mean, Wade's first kill is pretty traditional Friday the 13th stab in the head, but then Richie and Amanda both get some interest. It's an interesting new dimension for Jason.
Oh,
like
look,
some planning.
I love how Richie runs and finds Wade and runs back to the camp and gets caught in the bear trap. And the way Jason kills him is he runs up to him and drops that machete like dead center in his head, and then has to use his foot to pry it back out. I'm like, that's actually pretty cool looking.
That was a nice touch.
I think it's one of the things like that they've designed to put in this new video game that's coming out on Friday the 13th. Like, that's a standard kill move now from some of the action shots I've seen and stuff. And I'm like, well, that is in the spirit though of part 2 and 3 and 4, particularly 2 and 4, because particularly 4, I should say, because that's Tom Savini written all over it. Like, that feels like they're trying to pay homage to that. But in the same way, though, I wonder, are we losing something in translation because it is all going by so fast? And we're meeting these people, and the only one we get any story on besides the two guys that are, what is their business plan? They're going to cut a bunch of weed and then go sell it somewhere. I'm like, who are you going to sell it to? The Colombians? I mean, I didn't know what they were doing.
I don't even know if they were going to sell it. I just thought they had trekked up into the woods to smoke it.
No. Richie is talking about, we're going to have so much effing money we won't know what to do with it. Like they're apparently have got a hookup somewhere. Scarface in Jersey, somewhere back home. I don't know. But they think they can get the weed and do that. And just like Texas Chainsaw, by the way, where they're going to the concert to get weed and only part of the people in the car know it, not everybody knows it. So that's going on again. They borrowed from that idea again. And we get Whitney's story, where she's trying to let herself have fun while she's been the responsible young adult because her motorcycle riding brother is too much of a screw up to get it together to help her mom or help their mother together. So we got all that, and then everybody started getting killed. And when Jason comes at her and swings, I'm like, and then it cuts to black, and we get the title card. I thought, man, he just killed like everybody. And for a while, I thought, is that going to be the lesson of this movie? Is Jason's finally going to win and kill everybody? That he's not going to be reduced to toxic waste sludge or anything like that. They're actually going to let him die, or kill everybody this time.
That would have been a really interesting angle to just have Jason murder everyone and there not to be a final girl. There's just a final Jason.
But the thing they lay out about Whitney here, because they have this thing where Jason's mother gets killed and she drops this locket or whatever she's wearing around her neck that has a picture of him on one side and her on the other. And Whitney, while she's stumbling around this shack in the woods with her boyfriend, because we should say they find like Jason's lair out there, and they find a great jump scare, pull that mummified head of hers out of a shrine or something he's got built above the bathtub. It's really strange what's going on in there, right?
Oh yeah,
yeah. But they find that, and then Jason stabs through the floor to kill that guy, which is kind of Silver Bullet-ish. I was down. I was like, oh, cool. We're going to do that now. So we're calling back to all these other things. We might as well do that kill too. But again, another kill that felt a lot like Texas Chainsaw remakes that I'd already seen. She's running out of there, but she's got that locket the whole time. And the boyfriend before that drops this line like, hey, you look like this woman. And I'm like, no, you really don't. Amanda Rigetti looks nothing like the actress they got to play Jason's mother. I don't know how they are selling that on us.
Yeah, she doesn't. That actress is Nana Visitor, who was Major Kira Nerys on the Deep Space Nine, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, she was somebody on like a Star Trek. Deep Space Nine. So yeah, then they don't look anything alike. You're right.
No, but I can tell when we find out later that she's missing, and if she's the survivor here, that's the reason she survives. But it brings up a question for me: what does Jason want with her, chained up in the underground tunnels he's got there? Is it just because she reminds him of Mother, or what? I mean, that's some Norman Bates level Mother stuff he's got going on.
I don't think that's a question we're supposed to ask, because I don't think anyone thought that far ahead.
Well, I mean, they beat us over the head with it, though.
Yeah, they put more thought into it, and I'm sure that that's got something to do with it, that she does resemble the mom. But, I mean, if we're going by, say, part 2, Jason's eyesight can't be good.
Right.
He's clearly seeing, like, a blurry face and some dark hair, and that's his mom.
Yeah, he's got one eye. Like, they set that up. He's got the one eye. So, because he's wearing the bag, right? Where he's part 2 Jason, and for a little while here.
Well, I thought this bag had 2 eye holes.
Maybe it did. I thought he had a messed up looking eye, though. But maybe I'm just forgetting. I mean, and I've put another Jason into this, but I thought he had a messed up eye. So the mask goes from where like you can see in it, and then you can't. And I feel like they kept testing and changing that around a bunch. It feels like, I don't know, that there were a lot of different mask shots that they went with. Because the thing about Derek Mears is he's got really noticeable eyes if you've ever seen him without the mask and stuff. So at some point they made a conscious decision to really black the eyes out where you couldn't see it. So, I mean, I don't know if that was done in post or if it was done just in with fabric or what, but there's part of it where you can see an eye and part where you can't.
Well, supposedly Marcus Knightsville likes practical effects, so I would assume that whenever possible, they would just like smear makeup on his face.
That's probably what it is. But either way, like you get these 3 kills really here, right? And Whitney is seeing all this carnage, and Jason cuts to the titles. And I actually wrote in my notes, I was like, that's a heck of an opening. I mean, it works, But we flash immediately to a scene I call Meet the Douchebags and the Girls Who Love Them. Because we get our rest of our cast right now. They waste no time in this movie because, again, perfunctory is the word of the day here on Sesame Street, folks. Let's talk about these people, okay? You have Nolan, who is kind of a Matthew McConaughey stand-in, right? Like all he needed to do was... He looks like Matthew McConaughey's character from Dazed and Confused. You know, it's that era McConaughey. You've got Chelsea, who is played by a British pop star that I'm sad to say I owned the single of Willa Ford's I Want to Be Bad song. So,
really?
Yes, before I knew she did this, I had the CD single. I want to say it was one of those things I got working at the paper or something, like to review, and I just held on to it because I thought she was hot and the song was fun. But
number one, she is. Yeah. And number two, she's a lot better than Vitamin C in Dracula 2000.
This much is true. They both appear in that. You're right. So I forgot Vitamin C was in something there. Then we have Chewie, Aaron Yu, who apparently has a contract to be in all these movies because he's also in the Nightmare on Elm Street remake. So, and in several other things. Yeah, wasn't he in a Final Destination as well? I mean, he's been in a ton of stuff.
I think so. He looks really familiar.
He was kind of token Asian guy before John
Cho.
Yeah, John Cho became token Asian guy. You know, so I feel like I've seen Aaron Yu in a lot of stuff. We have Lawrence, the token black guy, who does have some of the best jokes in the movie where they're like, hey, pump up the car with gas. He's like, you asked the only black man to pump up gas? You're right, man. I'm sorry. I'll get the other white guy to do it. And then later on, it's like, I'm going into the music industry. You're going to do rap? No, why you got a stereotype like that? Well, what kind of music are you going to do? Rap. He does have some good lines, and he searches for a Sears catalog later to pleasure himself with. So he's a fun guy.
Yeah, between him and Chewie, they were like some of the most effective comic relief we've gotten in a Friday the 13th movie.
Yeah, no, they were good. You know what? They were as good as Crispin Glover and the guy with the computer in Friday the 13th 4. I kind of felt like that's who they were modeled after, were those two guys. They sort of felt like those friends, Then you have Bree, who exists to take her shirt off for long extended sequences. That's also in the killer cut that sequence goes on way too. I'm talking like Homeland long sex scenes, like where it's hanging around them a lot longer than it needs to. But she exists to do that and then to die Silent Night, Deadly Night style on some antlers later.
Yeah, and it also that kill also made me think of Halloween when the girl gets stabbed through with the knife and pinned to the wall.
Oh, that's the girl's boyfriend, actually, Bob. Yeah,
Bob.
Yeah, same idea though. Yeah, you're right. She is kind of Linda-ish.
And then I fell down after I watched that scene, I kind of paused the movie and fell down a rabbit hole where I looked up people killed by antlers in movies, and
there's a lot.
Happens quite a bit.
Yeah, Kiefer Sutherland got it in Lost Boys with some antlers, and there's lots of good antler kills out there. Antlers are. That's a good weapon. You see those hanging around. Jason's not wasting that. Trent, the incredible douchebag Billy Zabka clone. But you talk about an actor, though, that I feel like they told him exactly that. Like, we want you to be the douchiest guy you can be. He went up to the rest of the cast and said, okay, look, I'm really sorry for what I'm about to do, but I'm going to be the biggest a-hole you guys have ever met. Tell me the worst thing anybody's ever said to you, and then I'm going to be that guy. And there is absolutely nothing redeeming about this guy except for the fact that he wants to take care of like his parents' place. So he's always fussing at his friends to like not break the furniture and not do anything. So it is hilarious to me how much of a D-bag this guy is.
He's like a D-bag and a neat freak at the same time, and it's pretty spectacular.
But I go back to calling back to previous Friday the 13th. He feels like the blonde girl in Part 7 that was at the party trying to hook up with the other dude and then couldn't, that had the shoulder pads. Because it's the same attitude. Yeah. It's like that was probably like a distant cousin of his or something. Somebody he was related to. Maybe an aunt or something that he never got to meet. But, yeah, you got him. And then Jenna. You said she's his girlfriend, Daniel Panabaker's character. Is she his girlfriend, or is that the girl he just wants to get with and he can't ever convince her?
I think that's his girlfriend, and then I think he just cheats on her.
I guess you can read it either way, and it works because we all had that friend in college that was way cuter and hotter than she thought she was, and she always dated a guy that would treat her like crap, but she kept dating guys that treated her like crap and cheated on her with hoes. And I mean, I guess that's who she's supposed to be. Her death is the surprise death. I really thought we were going to get like 2 survivor girls. She's going to survive and Sister's going to survive because Clay's not going to hook up with his sister. We're not doing that. We're not doing that part of Texas Chainsaw. So we're not going there. So I thought we were going to get both of them, and no, we don't. She dies pretty horribly. In your version, in my version, she gets stabbed, and you can clearly see it's through her chest with a machete. But in the cut version, you think she gets it somewhere else, not comfortably. So, because it's just her shocked face.
Yeah, you're right, because it does. You don't see although I think I remember a real quick shot of like the machete poking out of her chest.
Okay, well, it's implied,
but it's like a blink. It's like a blink if you miss it, blink and you'll miss it kind of shot, though.
Yeah, I mean, in the killer cut version, it's very clear where she gets stabbed through the chest. In the version you saw, it may come through her chest, but it didn't originate from her back. It was pretty clear that it came from underneath, from below, and that's a violent. I mean, again, I was like, this movie is ultra violent kills and stuff. But I mean, these people, though, they are like every Friday the 13th stereotype that we just listed off from the cast here, right? It's every single one of them. We've seen this character. But the only thing they didn't have was somebody in a wheelchair to get it in the face. And I just think that's because it's 2009, and they're like, there's no way on earth we can do that.
Although we did see a wheelchair in Jason's murder shack.
Yes, right. And if you listen to the commentary and stuff, that's supposed to be that he's killed somebody. That's supposed to be the callback to the person he's killed in the wheelchair before. That, again, this isn't his first rodeo. Those weren't his first kills at the beginning of this movie that we see. So, I don't know. I want to talk for a minute about Clay here, Jared Padalecki, who was on, Supernatural? Was that his show, his TV show?
And he still is, because that show will never be canceled.
Wow. Yeah, we're recording this 7 years later, and he's still on that show. I'm glad he's still getting work. That's great. But, yeah, he's on a motorcycle. I kind of always confused him with Chad Michael Murray, because they do look a little alike. I guess he's maybe a little bigger and taller, but they have some of that same One Tree Hillishness to them.
Yeah, that's definitely very fair, because I think before he was on Supernatural, he was on Gilmore Girls.
Okay, so it's in the same WB Central Casting thing, that's who you get. I mean, I've heard for years people complain about those people in these horror movies. I'm like, that's who you get. That's who they got in the 70s for people off of sitcoms and shows you knew. I mean, Nancy Thompson in Nightmare on Elm Street was on Just the 10 of Us. I mean, that was the idea.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, you want people that people recognize. That's the whole point. So, I get it. I like his whole motif here, though, where he's going around and he's not going to take the cop's word for it. And I love the scene at the old lady's house. If for nothing more than it just reminds me of people from your wife's hometown where I lived briefly. That woman is from New Johnsonville and reminded me of people I knew there back in the day. That. Yeah, I mean, really. But she's also like this. She's the harbinger of doom. There's always one in these movies, right? And I'm like...
speaking of, also in the cabin, speaking of harbingers of doom, we saw Crazy Ralph's bike.
Yeah, I mean, there's all that stuff, right? But maybe she's Crazy Ralph's sister or mother or aunt or something. But I love what she tells Clay. She's like, she ain't missing, she's dead. People go off in these woods, start looking around things they're not supposed to. They end up dead. He just wants to be left alone, and so do the rest of us. And I'm like, it's like the town that turned its eye away from. And I'm like, does the town just let Jason have the acreage of the old camp? They're like, you know what, you can have it. I'm like, if so, that's a great. That's like from Part 6, where the town, before they opened the camp back up, somebody said, you know what, screw it, we're just staying away from there. I mean, that's the thing you do. I mean, Jaws never becomes a problem because eventually the shark would just swim away because there's nobody in the water if the frickin' mayor doesn't put people back in the water, right? And I feel like if we had not gone where we weren't supposed to go there, kids, none of this would have even happened. And that's a different turn, though, because you've always felt like before the town was trying to, like, cover up the bloody past of Jason. Now they're, like, actively involved in the cover-up.
Which, honestly, it makes a lot more sense to be actively involved in the cover-up. Because, I mean, the only people who are dying are, like, out-of-towners and, tourists. So what's the big loss?
All I can think is they've got to have, like, a plant or some other industry in that town that the tax dollars of which are keeping it afloat, because otherwise they'd be mad that the tourist dollars were getting killed. Oh,
it's their town is supported by the Silver Shamrock.
Yeah, they got to have something else that they're making out there, or else they would go, no, we can't have our tourist dollars murdered, because that was Amity's problem. They wouldn't survive without it. Crystal Lake here seems to be like, yeah, no, we don't want these people here anyway, which again makes me think it's more like New Johnsonville, so than New Jersey. No offense to my Waverly, Tennessee friends there. But look, it's small town America. But no, I like that twist, though. I think it does give us something. But we're really all here for the kills, right? And we get one more person here we got to talk about. Donnie the Townie, I guess we'll call him, or the maintenance man, country boy. I kind of felt like he was sort of like Charlie from Critters, if he was sort of sick and twisted. And stuff.
That's a good choice.
Yeah.
That's a good connection right there.
Clay's out there trying to do stuff, and he's working on like a machine or something. And I love he gets all these just total redneck white trash lines about like, you almost pushed the button on the whoop-ass machine, boy. And all this stuff. And I'm like, man, this guy couldn't kick his own ass probably. But, fine. And he's the one that dropped some knowledge on us. I never realized how much his exposition mattered. I thought he was just set up to get killed in a minute. But he talks about how somebody's stealing the old man's kerosene and they better knock it off and stop messing with his stuff. And, oh, hey, by the way, I found a bunch of weed. You want some? And I'm like, what? So Jason, that's how Jason's surviving, is he's ripping off this old farmer that this guy works for.
Yeah, it's have we seen a Jason where he's needed to worry about things like keeping warm before?
We've only seen him change clothes out and stuff in part 3. After part 3 to 4, when he changes outfits after he leaves the morgue and stuff, and between 2 and 3 he changed clothes. But otherwise, we don't see Jason stop to eat or anything. No, we've never wondered, how does he survive? And I guess that answers the question. It was, how would somebody survive all the way out there? Well, they'd rip off kerosene. So, because you can't run power lines without the power company eventually realizing, wait a minute, nobody's paying for these kilowatts.
Although the whole camp clearly is electrified.
Yes, which I got the sense that was run off of generators powered by kerosene, because you hear that low hum in the background all the time.
Oh, yeah.
But there's another thing, too, and I want to ask you now. We'll just skip ahead. We'll talk about the kills in detail in a minute. But Jason kills somebody, and he brings the body back and, sort of stores it somewhere. And I'm like, are we trying to imply that Jason has gone Texas Chainsaw Cannibal?
That was my assumption. It definitely seemed that way, because otherwise I'm not sure why he would, collect some headless corpses.
Right, is he going to put the other head on it or something? I don't know. I mean, it was Willa Ford's body, so I don't know. I kind of wish they would have gone ahead and just done that. Maybe they couldn't because they didn't want to get the complete direct comparison to Texas Chainsaw. But we've never thought about Jason as a cannibal before. That's an interesting concept to lay into all of his mass murdering.
He's clearly eating something very protein rich, because he's stacked 3 high. I mean, he's enormous.
I think he's definitely eating a lot of venison, because the bow and arrow shot he pulls off later, we're going to talk about when he takes out Matthew McConaughey double on the boat. All right. That was a great shot. So, let's just talk about that. We'll just do it now. Nolan and Chelsea go to take Trent's boat out because he specifically told them not to. And they talk about how hot that makes each of them for each other or whatever. And so he's dragging her around while she topless water skis, which my wife had the best line. She was like, I get what they're trying to do there, but that is such a dumb idea. That water hurts when it hits you when you're water skiing. You don't want your exposed nipples out there for everybody to that would have ended badly for her later in the night. So
that was actually Willa Ford wakeboarding.
I did not know that she did her own stunt in that. I did not know that.
Yep, they gave her 10 days to learn how to do it, and apparently she did.
Well, props to her, because it is an out of nowhere kill. It's not a surprise kill because you know he's going to get it somehow. You just wondered, is Jason going to sink the boat? What's he going to do? Nope. Jason hits him on a moving boat with an arrow shot through the back of the head.
Which is incredible, yeah.
Yes, and I was like, that's pretty awesome. I mean, that's a grand shot. And so then I was like, well, I know how Jason's been living all these years, because if he can shoot like that, holy cow. I mean, that's impressive. So I like that, though, because I thought the boat, it turns back to head toward her, and she thinks that it's coming back to pick her up because she's fallen off the wakeboard at this point. And no, it just hits her in the head. And I thought that's how she's going to get killed, is by the runaway boat. But no, they let Chelsea swim under the docks, and then Jason impales her head, picks her up so we can get one more frontal shot, and then drops her back down like a cork in the water. And I'm like, we've talked about the strength of Jason's machetes before. I don't think it's ever been as strong as this. This one's made out of titanium or something, man. I mean,
this is that space machete from 10. He somehow got his hands on it.
Maybe this is Earth 2 that all this is happening on. Just putting it out there. So, I don't think that actually wouldn't work now, because they did show us an opening. But if that opening weren't there, this could be Earth 2 Jason. So, I mean, that's not a far stretch, because, that machete is amazing. You talk about there's 25 minutes till the opening. Well, it's 6 minutes later, and these people are getting killed. I mean, they're not wasting any time on this. No, we got to start killing some people. I almost feel like Frank Mancuso was the one that stepped in and said, "Can we get to the kills, please? Need some kills, please." Quickly. And we got to set up these two losers to die next, and douchebag will set himself up. That's how they're going. Because what happens is Clay has bumped into these people at the little convenience store thing, right? And Trent was a dick to him in line. And
obviously.
Yeah, totally. But then, for no reason whatsoever, I was like, that's how you know this guy is just a total jerk and a chump, because he had Clay is paying him no mind. He kind of smiles at Danielle Panabaker for 2 seconds, but that's it. There's no reason for him to just be a total jerk to him like that, but he does. Clay ends up showing up at the house, though, passing out flyers about the sister again. And Danielle Panabaker, is she crushing on him, or is she just genuinely a nice person?
I think she's our one genuinely nice human in the film. Because it doesn't really necessarily seem like a crush, but he is fake Chad Michael Murray. It might be a crush.
It could be. I don't know.
I think mostly she's just trying to make up for the fact that Trent is a terrible person, and even after Trent sees that he's hanging up flyers about his missing sister, he continues to be a Billy Zabka to him.
Yeah, I mean, he's awful to him even when he knows the story. And the guy comes in there, and on some level, though, this is where Trent has actual human emotions for a minute. He does look at the guy and go, "Look, man, no offense, I don't know you, and this is my parents' house, and I'm trying not to get these hoodlums to destroy it, and this is kind of awkward. You're talking to my woman here," and I get the territoriality Trent has there for a second. Look, you can hang up your flyer, but you can't be hanging out with my girl and all this stuff. But then, of course, he goes too far, and you're like, oh, I just can't wait for the axe to hit you in the head. Because it's coming. Because it's like Jason is watching this outside going, well, I'm saving that one for the last. So, I mean, he is the size of Schwarzenegger from Commando. I guess he could be going, I'll kill you last, Trent. But without the yellow Porsche. But,
and he definitely didn't lie.
No.
Although, he hangs off on him for as long as you reasonably can.
Yeah, I mean, it's to the point, and we will get to Trent's death because it's a good one. It's a big one. But yeah, I love though that she's trying to help Clay, do anything, find something about his missing sister. We got to do something to help this guy because that's just the right thing to do and all this stuff. And I think you're right about Jenna, is that she is the one genuinely real person in the whole movie. That's why when she gets killed, it's really sad. It's no, she's the good one. Even sister was, going to smoke weed and screw her boyfriend in the woods. Who cares if she looks like Jason's mother? That's killable offenses. So,
oh yeah,
in Jason's Old Testament world, I mean, that's what he's going with. And we've killed 2. We get some extended scenes of people walking around playing beer pong and all that kind of crazy stuff. But we don't waste much time. We got to get to the nighttime. And Chewie and everybody drunkenly break a table, and he has to go out to the tool shed, right? And I love Aaron Yu's whole performance here in the tool shed. He's like, man, poor people live in houses smaller than this tool shed, and just he's talking all this trash about Trent. And it is a neat thing when Jason just kind of leers up behind him, right? And that mask pops out. Because at this point, Jason's killed Donnie, the townie guy, and he's gotten the hockey mask, which, is... I think Donnie deserved to die. He was going to have sex with that mannequin, and that mannequin was not consenting, so that was totally justifiable. So he lures it behind him, and I like that Jason, instead of making a big ruckus, decides, I'm going to do this one Michael Myers style, and he kills him, quietly. He stabs him in the throat with a screwdriver instead of hacking him to bits and being a bull at a china shop, which Jason usually is.
Yeah, it's a weird touch of restraint, I guess, to make up for the fact that later on he's going to impale someone on antlers and then throw them out the window.
Well, Jason does like to throw half-naked girls out windows. We've seen that happen several times. So it's part of his thing. It's also another Texas Chainsaw callback every time that happens. So a girl falling out a window. It's something they're going to do. But I don't know. I like the restraint, like we said. I thought it was a good touch because it gives you another reason to send everybody else out there, right? That's why Lawrence goes out there to see what's going on, because the power gets cut, right? And the phone lines get cut. So now Jason's got a plan, and that's another thing that's different about this Jason is Jason usually just killed you because you got in his way, or you were at the camp and you weren't supposed to be, right? Now he's purposely stalking and hunting these people.
Yeah, it goes back to the Rambo thing. It's clearly a more methodical, purposeful Jason, which is an interesting thing to think about because he's large enough to be a force of nature, but to know that it's a controlled, calculated sort of danger makes it even more interesting to watch, I guess.
The thing that I don't get here is what sets him off to kill these people specifically. Is it the fact that they've taken in this guy that's asking questions about him? Did the old woman tip him off? Usually it's because they're in the way. You got to get a sense that Trent's parents have had this cabin for a long time. It's well stocked. It's not like people don't go there often. He had to have known it existed. So what set him off?
I would say it would be the intrusion of Clay. And also, Nolan and Chelsea go stomping around through the forest because they're driving pretty recklessly through the woods, and we know Jason doesn't like that.
Well, it would have been better had they had one moment where he jumps across the road and they almost hit him, and that's what puts him on their trail, because you never know what puts him to them. Jason does teleport in this movie. 3 or 4 different times. He goes from one spot to the next, and in no way did you have any idea how he got there. And Jason's known to run, though. We've seen Jason run. He doesn't just, walk around Michael Myers would or something. But he pulls the vaporization and rematerialization quicker than most Star Trek Enterprise shows. I mean, it's impressive how quickly he moves in this film. My favorite kill in the movie probably has to be Lawrence's, because it is the most painful and most gruesome. He's running away, and Jason picks up a double-sided axe, and have you ever seen those axe throwing competitions on ESPNU when there's no football in the off season and it's lumberjack competitions in Oregon and stuff? The guys do this, yeah. Jason throws it that style into this dude's back and impales him, and we get to hear him out there screaming and begging for people to come help him. And Jason walks up and just he's laying on the ground, and Jason rolls him over and stomps him through the rest of the axe so that it goes through him and kills him. I was like, that was brutal. That was a brutal kill.
But Jason only does it. Jason only does that once he sees no one's going to fall for his trap.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's I'm going to wound this guy, and then they'll come to him, and then I'll be able to pick him off more. And when they don't do it, he's like, fine. And just walks right over the guy. And it goes back to that thing we were just talking about, is Jason is all about the plan in this one. Like, he's not wasting any time at all. He's getting right down to the nitty-gritty, doing what he needs to do, and once he realizes the plan doesn't work, he doesn't get fooled by it. He just keeps going on. Because when they do come out there to finally investigate, he's teleported to the top of the roof somehow. You know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Which Jason does travel around through a series of tunnels, apparently, and that was the way they explained his magical ability to teleport.
Mm-hmm.
But I somehow don't think he shimmied up the fireplace to get onto the roof.
Yeah, I don't know how that happens. So, of course, at this point, you've got everybody back in the house. Trent's got a gun now, so that's not going to end well. You know, we know that's happening. Bree's running around in just a shirt because, you know, she's just finished up with old Trent here, and I really thought at first she was just going to get stabbed like through the shower curtain because she backs into Jason, who's hiding behind her in the shower. So he teleports to the roof, then to the inside of the house where nobody notices him, so he can grab her and then impale her on antlers to throw her out the window.
Jason's credit, it is a very cool looking kill.
Oh, it's a great kill. I mean, it has the element of surprise from behind. It's got the gore factor. It's somebody that you want to see killed because this cheating hoe needs to die, right? Like that's what happens in these movies, right? The gorgeous blonde never lives. Like that's not going to be allowed to exist, right? So,
well, she has to be punished for her. Oh crap! What was the phrase Trent used? Perfect nipple placement.
That, and she's got like a camcorder part of the time and not part of the time. I'm like, is she working for Girls Gone Wild? I'm like, I don't understand. I've always like thought way too much about this and said like, why does she have the camera? Like, I'd see if he had the camera, but like, if she exploiting him now, you know? So I don't know. It's a very weird scene, but of course she gets it, and that's the end of Bree, and we're doing the pick-off now at this point. So the cop shows up finally to help, right? And he gets a great kill. Like, and in the uncut version, when Jason hits him with the knife and impales his head through the door, you actually see the eyeball sort of hanging off the knife for a minute. I don't know if you saw that in your version or not. But again, Jason's strength in these things is unmatched.
I'm kind of wishing I'd gotten the uncut version now because that sounds awesome.
I mean, look, I will tell you, the effects kills are fantastic looking in the movie for what they are. They're some of the best ones they've ever put in a Friday the 13th movie. If you look beyond the fact that you don't care about any of these people, you know it's all about Clay. And at this point, we've seen Whitney's still alive, right? Like we've seen that she can. There's a little bell trigger that Jason has that if people walk along, they trigger the underground layer where he hangs out, and she can hear that too. And so she's trying to get herself loose from the handcuffs and all this stuff. And, for somebody who's been gone for 6 months and presumably living chained underground, she don't look that bad.
No, maybe maybe Jason was nice enough to provide her with some dry shampoo.
Yeah.
And clearly plenty of venison meat to keep her healthy and to make her coat shiny and manageable.
I mean, yeah, something. What's he? That was my question. Does he have like a Buffalo Bill thing going on down there? Does he want her to loosen up a little bit so he can have the skin? I mean, I don't know. I don't know what his purpose is with her other than the dropped bit about she kind of looks like his mother even though she really doesn't. Like, what's he doing with her? Why doesn't he kill her? Because he clearly seems to want to kill her later on when she turns on him, and that's not the first time she's tried to turn on him.
Oh, of course not. But maybe he was I don't know, saving her for, you hear the dry spell sometimes. Nobody shows up to the cabin. People don't smoke the reefer you left out there as a trap. You're going to go months in the middle of nowhere without having somebody to kill, and you're going to get that itch. And maybe that's why,
I'll put a redhead on a stick and I'll tempt him. Is that it?
Yes.
Kind of like the goat for the Tyrannosaur in Jurassic Park. So, I guess he could have that plan.
You get a box with a stick holding it up, and then you put a 6-pack of Miller Lite. Yeah.
Just wait. When we get NASCAR back, so I'll have them all here. So we've got Trent, Jenna, and Clay running around at this point, and this is where Trent's going to get it, is by the road here. And this is another one of those that the town clearly is in on it and doesn't care moments here. because not only does he stab Trent and holds him up with the machete, which in my cut of it is very long and very bloody, he then sticks him on the back of like a tow truck as the tow truck drives off, dragging his lifeless body behind it. And I was like, well, I guess that's what we wanted for Trent, was for him to basically become a hood ornament for one of the townies to drive off with.
Yeah, it's definitely a rejected Texas Chainsaw Massacre kind of kill. Oh, yeah. But it is a lot of fun.
It feels like one of the House of Wax kills, if you ever saw that remake, speaking of Chad Michael Murray. So it feels like that kind of a kill somewhere along the way. But I don't know. It again, this feels like the kind of thing that gets borrowed, that it's borrowing from everything else that has been, so it might as well do that too. But we want him killed good, though, right? Like, he can't just get stabbed through the back or anything like that. Like, he's got to die extra harsh.
And it's pretty satisfying because it looks like he's still alive when he's getting dragged away by the pickup truck.
Yeah, he's going to have to bleed out while impaled on the pickup truck. Yeah, that's the part. So, because a guy like Trent, I guess, would die slowly or something. So,
speaking of House of Wax, you know who else was in that remake? Jared Padalecki.
I did not realize that. That makes so much sense, because I always just think of Alicia Cuthbert and Chad Michael Murray, but you're right, I knew he was in another one of these. Jared Padalecki's in it, along with Paris Hilton, and watching Paris Hilton get impaled with a big steel rod, yes, is just as satisfying as you think it would be. So
I was unfortunate enough to have to review that movie, and that was my favorite one.
I would say that one's actually not that bad. I mean, it's ultimately kind of stupid, but there's about 45 minutes of it that are really good and intense. And Alicia Cuthbert running around trying to stay alive and not get dead is pretty good for part of it. It's when they get into the motivations of all of it that it just turns into complete mush. But
yeah,
we're reviewing everything except Friday the 13th tonight, I think. But,
which ought to tell you something about the relative quality of this film.
What?
And although it's that's jumping ahead, but it references so many other things. It's hard not to talk about all the other stuff that it brings to mind.
No, I think that's exactly what they want you to do. They want you to be reminded of all these other things, because then you'll go and buy those DVDs and you'll rent those and you'll talk about those and they'll create buzz for those, and then we can do those. And I mean, this movie is concocted to be a greatest hits of Jason stuff, and on that level, it works. I mean, it does. But we finally get down to our final, big showdown here or whatever. And as Jenna and Clay have found Whitney and they're getting out of the underground tunnels, the Jenna kill is the one that, I still forget that it's coming. And I'm surprised that she gets it. She was the good girl, and she got it. I think they did that on purpose, to have the good girl die once.
It's definitely an interesting inversion of the trope. I had assumed that Whitney would be the one to die, because it's like you went through all this stuff to get her back, and now, oh, look, she just got knifed in the neck. What are you going to do? It just seemed kind of like a fatalist type of action for the movie to take.
I thought she would die like saving her brother. He came back to save her, but she seemed to be someone who was on a destiny with death. Her mother was going to die. She had to be there. All this stuff. And just because she made this one selfish choice, she will sacrifice herself when her brother has sacrificed so much to come and get her. I felt like she was going to somehow or another, kill Jason and her at the same time or something. I've always thought like they could have done that, and it would have worked. But no, they killed Jenna. And so that lets me know that they never really intended for any of the sparks between those two people to come to fruition for anything. Which, I mean, that's a speed to romance anyway, right? Like, that ain't gonna last. Like the intensity that this was based upon is no. When Jenna gets back home to college, she's going to be in therapy for a long time. So,
and Clay is going to go back to his career as a driver of a runaway bus, I guess.
I don't, or whatever he was doing before he, motorcycle gang, whatever his career was when he wasn't taking care of his dying mother. But yeah, but it leaves
too clean to be in a motorcycle gang.
Maybe he's a mechanic. I don't know. But anyway, he and Whitney are now facing off against Jason, and I do like the showdown they get with Jason. I mean, they get in some pretty good licks with him back at the farmhouse and stuff.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun, and he's a large, imposing Jason, but he doesn't seem to be as supernaturally immune to pain. Because I mean, you see it when he gets stabbed in the leg. He like earlier in the film, he actually grabs his leg.
Oh, you know what? I credit that back to like part 2 Jason that would get hurt, and part 4 Jason that would get hurt and get beat up by everybody and would like react to it and stuff. I thought that was a nice touch that they didn't go the supernatural route this time and they let Jason be woundable. Like, I think that it makes the odds a little more even though they're definitely stacked in his favor. It's not such a surprise when these people finally best him. And they have to get creative to do it. I mean, let's just say it, man. They basically tie a chain around his neck. He beats the crap out of him with it. And then one of them goes and throws it in the back of like a wood chipper that drags him and simultaneously hangs him while chopping up the back of his head. Right? Like,
yeah, it was a very cool. It was a very fun kill. Very Fargo.
Yeah.
I kept waiting for just the blood spray to come out of the back of the wood chipper, but I don't think, in my cut at least, they didn't have that.
It doesn't. There is an extended shot of the thing chopping him up and it throwing blood at you, but I don't think this movie's in 3D or anything, so they didn't do any of that stuff. So, but we're left though. They take his body to the dock to throw it off into the water along with his iconic mask and his machete. And my wife and I looked at each other and said, "Well, you just killed your evidence." So, like, see,
yeah, no kidding.
The guy with all this stuff. Maybe they realize like the townies here are going to totally be on his side. The DA is. We're just going to have to run and hide the body. So, and hope they don't say anything. But it's not over because maskless Jason comes up through the wood and grabs Whitney, and boom, we go to cut. And that's why I wrote in my notes for the kill list, Clay and Whitney ? I kind of think they did what we were talking about earlier, that they let Jason win and kill everybody. I mean, I'm left to, in this universe, they'll never go back to it again. The new one they're making is not going to pick up where this one left off or anything. In this universe, I think Jason wins.
Yeah, it definitely, this seems the most like, this one seems the most like Jason is going to win. It's definitely the one where he seems to basically overcome everyone, I guess. Yeah, and I think definitely this is, or Jason doesn't let anyone live this time.
Yeah, I mean, it is almost like the end of part 7 or 6, where he's still down at the bottom of the river and he can't move anymore at the lake. But he's like, "You just wait till I get out of this chain." That look on his face, So, and he's just waiting around for Tina, at that point. But yeah, I don't know. It's a different kind of ending. It's a little nihilistic. I mean, to think of it that way. And maybe that's why when I walked out of the theater in 2009, I had just given up on this movie so hard that I was like, "Oh, this is horrible," and went home and scratched out 500 words or whatever on it and about everything that was wrong with it. So maybe I didn't get the point. And I'm wondering, though, if the point is anything other than let's make this the most in-referenced horror movie we possibly can. We'll do all the things you're supposed to do in a Jason movie, and in the end, we'll make it ambiguous so we can set up the sequel. That will never happen. That's really what this film is.
It's kind of weird to me that the sequel didn't happen.
Well, it made so much money. I mean, it was the biggest opening weekend of any of this stuff. It was like a $50 million opening. How it never came together again, I don't know. I mean, they talked about it for years. But I have no idea how they never got a sequel out of this. Do you know anything on it?
I mean, well, one of the problems I think was the fact that it made all its money opening weekend, and then just completely like crapped out the second weekend. But at the same time, does that really matter? It's a horror movie. Horror movies don't typically have legs. And it made almost $50 million over President's Day weekend.
Yeah, it more than doubled its budget in a week. Because again, they didn't have to spend $100 million to market this. They spent maybe 7 or 8. Because this movie sells itself.
7 or 8 million, or $7 or $8.
I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and say the ledger says 7 or 8 million, but it's also probably paying for a Transformers trailer somewhere along the way. So, or a server that gets melted or something, by the friggin' Devastator or something. So, but I mean, whatever. But no, I'm with you. I mean, yeah, horror movies are built to make all their money in the first weekend. That's what they're supposed to do. It did what it was supposed to do. How could they not sequelize it? I don't know, but they never did. They tried, but they never got anything cobbled together. I mean, maybe it was because we kind of did everything in this movie, so what do we do now?
They spent a lot of money trying to come up with screenwriters for the remake. Like, apparently, New Line, they spent like $6 million or so buying scripts from a whole bunch, like 18 unused scripts for like a dozen people.
Yeah.
Like, to try to get it off the ground again.
It feels like what has happened with this franchise since New Line got a hold of it, and Paramount got back involved in this one again. But
that was one of the other that was one of the other problems they had. Mm-hmm. There was a prolonged legal battle between Paramount and New Line over the production of this Friday the 13th.
Well, I can understand that as to why it took so long to get this one together, and it is part of the thing that held up Freddy vs. Jason for years. That was also because they did go through about a dozen scripts to try to get that. So I don't know, man. I kind of tend to stick with my idea that they did everything they thought they could do in one here, and there was nothing left to do. And nobody could come up with anything convincing to the studio that they thought would work and make any money. So they just said, screw it, we'll move on and do another one. So they did Nightmare on Elm Street instead. So, which was probably, that was in pre-production when this one came out, but I mean, it wasn't it came out a year later, so they hit the gas on it after this was done. But I don't know, I'm surprised this one never got any sequels either, and now it won't, because the new thing is supposed to, if you read half of what you've read about the new film that's supposed to be coming out sometime in 2017.
January 13th, 2017.
That's what they're saying.
That's Friday the 13th.
Yeah, they're saying that. I also saw something else that may get pushed back to another Friday the 13th later in the year. I mean, I don't know. They got a long way to go. I'll believe it when it hits theaters. We'll do it when it comes up. But, we're done with the Jason series officially, as with this, because Freddy vs. Jason it's the monster movie mashup that we'll get to next time. But before that, we got to do final thoughts, recommendations, and popcorn ratings. So, Ron, what are yours for the 2009 Friday the 13th?
This was the one I've definitely seen the least of. I actually don't know if I'd watched it all the way through until we watched it for this podcast. I'm definitely going to say it's in the mid to top if we were throwing all the Jasons together in a ranking system like we did on previous episodes. I think this one would definitely come up somewhere near, middle to large popcorn territory, maybe fourth or fifth best. There's some good deliberate humor here. There are some interesting kills. I don't think the Tunnel Rat Jason works quite as well as they want it to, but I do think the chase through the tunnels was fun, that we got towards when Jenna was getting stabbed. So yeah, I'm going to go a nice solid medium popcorn here. It's better than I think it should have been, if only because it has a nice ruthlessness without being as meaningless as, say, the deaths in I believe it was 5, where they had to deliberately kill someone every few minutes just to kind of carry the movie along. Yeah, so I'm gonna go medium popcorn.
If you go back and you were to dig up my review of this, where I just scathed it and stuff, I clearly hated this movie when I saw it. And I will admit now, I had not seen a Friday the 13th movie in a long time when I went and saw this one in the theater. So I will credit what I'm about to say in terms of ratings with the fact that we've just watched the entire series now, and I'm able to sort of put it in context with what else is out there. And I agree with what you said. If I were to put this in the giant rank of them, it's right in there with the top 3 or 4 of them. I mean, it's everything you want in a Jason movie. The effects are awesome. I like this Jason. People talk about, oh, he could have been anybody in this. Well, I kind of like the fact that Jason's just this big Hulk in the woods. I was cool for that. I think that works better for him than some of these others that they've done that with. I thought it was pretty good. Now, there's a lot of throwaway characters in it. But again, knowing the series now and really knowing it as intimately as we both do now, having watched them all again recently, they're right in par for the course, and they're supposed to be. I think that's exactly what they wanted. I still think there's some of it that's weak. Tunnel Rat Jason's not the greatest idea, and they don't explore it well, and they don't explain that mother angle well enough, and there's a couple of this that I'm like, they'd have been better if they just stuck with the original 13 kills. There just seem to be a couple of them that are just there to be done. But it's not that bad. And again, maybe I'm getting soft in my old age, or maybe it is, again, the context of seeing this with the series. But I think this was pretty good. Moreover, I had a lot of fun watching it. It's a fun one to put on and watch. If it's on during AMC, Fright Fest or whatever, I'll definitely watch it. So it's not that bad. So I'm going to give it a large popcorn, and I almost feel like I'm overrating it with that. But I think it's better than just a standard. You know what? No, I'm going to change my mind. I'm going to give it a good, solid medium popcorn. I can't give this a large popcorn because it is the definition of derivative. I mean, it completely is. But as horror remakes go, you could do a lot worse, in my opinion. So this is good medium popcorn, good Jason fun. And while I wish there had been a sequel to it, they could have gone somewhere else. They probably wouldn't have done it well. So maybe it's good that there is just this one, and it's there to be enjoyed. But we are now done with the Friday the 13th series, as it were. We now tag back up with Brian, who is finishing up Nightmare on Elm Street this coming Tuesday with me with its remake. And then next Friday, man, we're putting out Freddy vs. Jason. So it's time for our monster mashup tag team event of Shocktober 16.
It's just a shame it won't be a Friday the 13th.
I tried, and it wasn't going to work. There were too many films to ever get
the calendar just has refused to cooperate.
It's just not going to work on this one. So we'll have to forgive ourselves for that. But we do get Freddy versus Jason, and look, I'll say it now too. I'm one of those people that contends that it's not a Freddy. It's not a Jason movie anyway. It's a Freddy movie with Jason in it. So we'll see if I'm right about that or not when we get around to talking about it here in the next week or so. But, folks, thanks for joining us on this latest edition of Film Strip. Of course, all of our past episodes are on our iTunes feed and also on our website, continuousplaypodcast.com/movies. Hook up with us on Facebook and Twitter. Let us know what you think of the show. We appreciate your support. Until next time, for Ron, I'm Jay. Thanks for listening to Film Strip.
Thank you for listening to Film Strip. You can find more episodes on our website, continuousplaypodcast.com/movies. Please leave us a positive review on iTunes and link up with us on Facebook. The Film Strip theme music is produced and performed by Frozen Lake 121.